Um, Welcome, everybody. The Gin and Tonic Show, as I'm sure you know, is a weekly online call-in panel discussion show that focuses on the religion of Islam and related topics, in juxtaposition to the propaganda of Muslim apologists, the far-right conservative Christians, and other parties of disinformants and misinformants. The Gin and Tonic Show aims to bring a balanced perspective to issues pertaining to Islam by presenting accurate information in order to educate its viewers on Islamic history, scripture, theology, politics, etc. The show is currently hosted weekly at 9 o'clock a.m. Sunday UTC on Google Hangouts and streams live at the allotted weekly time on the Gin and Tonic Show official YouTube channel at youtube.com/user/the Gin and Tonic Show/live. The audience can participate by leaving comments on the live streaming YouTube video or by calling into the show to ask questions and stimulate discussion. To do this, you merely have to find the link to the live stream, click on that, and it'll ask you to log into your YouTube or Google or Gmail account, and then it will bring you onto the live streaming show where you can join the Hangout and participate with us live. Now you may ask yourself, where can you find this link to the live streaming Hangout? We will post it in the live streaming comments section at some point during the show. So if you want to call in, keep an eye on that. Yeah, that's all the introductory. Oh, and be aware that everything is recorded and uploaded online. Stop.
Yeah, but this uploading on, because we were just thinking whether we should make this a podcast instead of Hangout, and whether we should put this onto iTunes or not. But I'm not sure how many more people are going to get it then. So
I don't know.
If it's possible to give us some feedback, please do.
Yes. So I've been told that, like, I've talked to people who only found us via YouTube. Oh, sorry, iTunes, for example. And most people apparently like to watch our show whilst they're doing something. So, like, listening to the long podcast while, I don't know, they're at the gym or something, or walking somewhere, whatever. And so iTunes is just way more convenient for that. So,
yeah, they can't see that my wife is sitting next to me topless and that I'm moderating the show upside down and things like that.
Yeah, or if you're an alien, or if you've got three heads.
And whether my eyes are blinking sideways.
Yeah.
And the other thing is,
right.
we're about the time, but I just realized if we move this like 10 hours or even 12 hours, then we are slap bang in the middle of Magic Sandwich and Atheist Experience.
Oh.
So that's also not a fantastic option.
We'll figure something out.
Because what we're trying to do is make it more USA friendly, because we've been Asia friendly now, and that hasn't done anything. It was my bright idea. I'm sorry. I thought we're going to have more participation by Muslims if we are more Muslim friendly and more, in the area where there's the most Muslims, but that didn't really work. So, anyway, what we're doing is we're talking about Islam. And we think that Islam is a whole mixture of things, and we're trying to explain this mixture. Now, Islam is based on the Quran, which determines the other portions of Islam, because Islam is not just a religion, it's a socio-political, socio-economic, it's all sorts of systems. It's also an ideology, mainly a political ideology, which we can see now with all these different countries declaring caliphates. And it's a worldview, and of course the religion, which determines all these other elements based on the Quran, which is not based on the Quran as such, but based on interpretations of the Quran, because the Quran is so vague and ambiguous. So it requires, additional explanatory texts, which in part is being done by the Sunnah, which are the sayings, the doings, the thinkings, the actions, the whatever of Muhammad. And then we have several scholarly let's say, commentaries which also flow into this, And then you have the various fatwas, which are not binding, but do nevertheless still influence people. So what we do is explain Islam and its contents. And we do this not to with a goal of proselytizing or converting anyone or telling anybody, listen, you can't think this, you're not allowed to do this. No, we try and teach people what this is and not how to use it. If somebody needs their God, well, by all means, keep your God. Just don't expect anybody else to believe this. Now, we are not Christians, we're not Jews, we're not Satanists, we're not anything, but we are just atheists. An atheist is somebody who does not believe something. So there's no worldview, there's no belief system, there's no religion for atheists. We just don't believe that there are gods. And that's the only thing we don't believe. I mean, I'm also a naturalist, I'm also an empiricist, I'm a whole lot of things. But this is what makes up me as a personality. The atheist in me does not govern anything, does not make me wake up in the morning and think, oh my goodness, what if there's a God or something? I don't think about it. It's not important for me. It's like dragons are not important for me, so I don't think about dragons constantly. So what we're trying to say is that we, being atheists, we're trying to be objective, we're trying to be rational, we're trying to be factual, and we're trying to talk about what Islam is and not what Islam could be or what some scholars think or this and that. What we're trying to present is an honest opinion of what we think Islam is. It's unfortunate, but Ground Zero Mosque is not delivering the news he used to. It used to be quite nice always to know what was going on in the world. So what I found, and I'd love to get this woman here on the show, because this Irshad Manji, she's a Muslim, but this is exactly the kind of Muslim that I like. All right, she says what I think. She explains how dishonest mainstream Muslims are, and that Muslims should get real, should get honest, acknowledge what the Quran says, accept the flack, and then demonstrate they're better than what the Quran commands in atrocities. And she says that the lies being told today by apologists and clerics are detrimental to Islam. And that's exactly my point. I think apologists today, and I'm doing this apology series, and I'm going to be uploading, I think I'm going to be finished today, another woman, the typical stupid apologist who is actually making Islam look stupid. And this is exactly what this Irshad Manji is doing. She's saying, don't do that. Don't make Islam look stupid. Take what is good and just ignore what is bad. I mean, Islam was born out of a war era, an era of violent conquering and expansion. So the expansion in those days required people to fight, even if they didn't want to. It required people to not drink alcohol and not womanize, but to fight. And that's the era in which the Quran was born, and that is reflected in the Quran. And she says, well, get rid of that. It's overboard, it's gone. Just stick to the spiritual side. Just imagine that there's somebody who's looking out for you, and this gives you comfort, and this is something that helps you through the day. And that is exactly what Islam should be, not what we are seeing every day. And I need to go into this. It's actually quite sad for me. Like, if you scan the news, there is so little that is positive or that is neutral or that in any way is not violent or something about Islam. There are so many instances of Islam, of Muslims who follow a, let's say, more fundamentalist and more conservative line of Islam, that they are now hogging the headlines and giving Islam a bad name. But we cannot change this. I mean, I can't just ignore Boko Haram, this Abu Bakr, saying that you people should understand that we only obey Allah. So how can you say, no, he's not a Muslim? He says, we only obey Allah. We tread the path of the Prophet. We hope to die on this path. Our goal is the garden of eternal bliss. And I'm quoting him here. And again, open quotes. Battle, hitting, striking, and killing with a gun, which we look forward to like a tasty meal. End quote. So this is the guy this is what he is saying. And then people try and tell me, well, he's not a Muslim. He is a Muslim. He's just a different Muslim. He's interpreting the Quran and the Sunnah differently. And he is following what Muhammad did. I know that Muslims don't like hearing this. I know that they always like to hear, yeah, Muhammad was such a nice guy, and he was so good to his family, and some days there was no smoke coming out of the chimney, he was so poor. No! He was a ruthless pirate. He made his living by pirating, looting, plundering. That's what he did. He was a thief. And he stole things by after killing people. He beheaded hundreds. He raped, he enslaved, he tortured. I mean, how could people ignore this? It's part of Islam. And they are doing exactly what Muhammad did. And this guy from Boko Haram says that the kidnapped and enslaved girls have been sold off. They were married off and are gone because they get money for this. Because in Islam, this is another rule, women are tilth and need to be paid for. So you go to the father, you give him money, and then you get the woman. That's the way that it works in Islam. I mean, you need to be honest. You can't just say, no, Muhammad was such a nice guy and he was so good to his wives and he was good to the orphans. No, he was not. And don't tell me that Islam gave women rights and stopped slavery and all that. That's bullshit. Stop lying to yourself. So Daesh, the same thing. The killing and torture continues. Nothing new, just more and more people are being killed in the name of Islam. And it's Allah. So don't come to me and say, no, Islam is all about peace. No, it's not. Stop lying. Sunni Muslim, this Abu Nimr tribe, I mean, they've lost their houses, they've lost their village, and now they've lost their lives. So, I mean, I don't understand how anybody can then say, well, Islam is a religion of peace. It's not. And what is outright bizarre, and this for me is like totally crazy, is that the Pakistani ambassador to the United Nations is now asking the international community, all right, the international community, to oppose and defeat this evil ideology. And he says, and now, he is now telling the international community they did not act in Syria. So he thinks that the USA, the UK, France, Poland, Australia, New Zealand, everybody should have gone into Syria and done what? Is he fucking mad? I mean, does he think everybody should have gone in there and bombed the shit out of Syria so that then they can say, well, this is a declaration of war against all Islam? Because the international community, which, come on, it does include the United States. So you can't say the international community should have done something in Syria and then say, yeah, but the US, well, maybe put the US in there so that we can slander them a bit. This is crazy. So if the international community chucks an invader out of Kuwait, it is a declaration of war against Islam. And when they don't, they are chastised for that too. It's crazy. Or maybe it's because the Pakistani Taliban announced they want to join Daesh. So now Pakistan is scared of it.
The funny thing is,
sorry?
The Pakistan was pretty instrumental in the creation of the Taliban. So,
yes, yeah.
You know, the Taliban was, I saw one person say the Taliban was basically the Pakistan's foreign policy in Afghanistan. So
well, it was influencing, yeah, okay. But I don't know how somebody can stand up in the United Nations and say this. I mean, are the people in the United Nations all stupid? Yes, I don't believe this. Okay, but I mean, all these can be topics that we're going to talk about in more depth because there's a lot of material here. Because it is about Islam and it's about the political side of Islam, which is the predominant side in my eyes. Anyway, my last thing is that in Jerusalem we have unrest again. Okay, I mean it's been crazy for a year now, but now it seems to be culminating because there's fighting between police and what the media calls Palestinian youths. Now everybody knows that Palestine does not exist; it's just an area. It's like saying some young guys from the Black Forest are coming and throwing stones. So and they closed the Al-Aqsa Mosque, okay, because this was now being used as an excuse, and people went there to pray and blah blah blah, and so they closed it. And then when things quietened down, Well, they now reopened it, and immediately the fighting flared up again. So apart from all the other nonsense of Palestinians and the legitimacy of Al-Aqsa, because I don't maintain that Al-Aqsa or Jerusalem is mentioned in the Quran. I don't see the necessity of making Al-Aqsa one of the most important shrines in Islam. The clerics in Islam now call this temporary closing an act of war, and a declaration of war on all Muslims. And there's some people in the Islamic religious community, they are now calling for Muslims to come and defend Al-Aqsa. Are these people mad? They're saying, well, hang on, come and fight in Syria, come and fight in Iraq, come and fight here, come and fight there, and now come to Jerusalem and cause some shit here. Instead of like quieting down, instead of thinking just for 2 seconds, you know, using both brain cells simultaneously and thinking for 2 seconds and saying, if we do that, what happens if 50,000 Muslims now come here and defend Al-Aqsa? Possibly bring a couple of missiles, a couple of rockets, a couple of this, and let's flatten Jerusalem, and then we are the owners of Al-Aqsa. Then we have defended it successfully. What do they think is going to happen? Do they think that everybody's going to say, "Oh yeah, the Muslims now have Al-Aqsa"? I mean, they're fucking stupid. I can't believe it. They can't, but on the other hand, they can't even manage to rouse Muslims to protest and stop Daesh or Boko Haram. But when Muslims start throwing stones, they need immediate help. I mean, sorry. Islam as lived like that and interpreted like that does not belong in the 21st century of today. And then, you know, there's rockets flying into Israel from Gaza again. I mean, this is going to go on, and violence and war and violence and war, and Hamas is going to chuck a couple of rockets, and then Israel is going to say, listen, I've had enough, let's go and take these guys out. Then a couple of kids are going to be blown up again. Everybody's going to complain about Israel, everybody's going to complain about the US, and Palestine must be freed. And I mean, okay, I'm going to keep quiet and calm down, because it gets me so angry to see how people are being abused, and they don't even understand this. They don't even see what it is that they're doing. And then you have, somebody said to me, "Oh, you need to watch this." Hamza, he's back on the circuit. Okay, he was in Australia, caused some shit there, and he's ranting again about capitalism, about his Islam should take over the world so that capitalism is abolished, because he sees capitalism as probably the worst thing since sliced bread.
Muhammad was a capitalist.
They are so fucked up, really, and it makes me angry to think that there are people who actually believe this, and there are people stupid enough to follow this. So.
Well, Muhammad was a capitalist. He was a merchant.
Well, he was a camel driver. He was a camel herder. He was a pagan.
But he was also a merchant, so he was also a capitalist. I imagine what Hamza is specifically referring to maybe is industrial capitalism. There are different kinds of capitalism. We're just saying capitalism in general. Well, guess what? Islam, you know, is capitalist. So, surprise. You know, I mean, it's articulated by merchants. You know, it's a mercantile religion. And it's,
yeah, but the Muslim merchant is an honest merchant. And that is the Islamic capitalism is honest capitalism, because you're making a profit. The Western capitalism, that is what is bad.
You mean, well, Western? What does Western capitalism mean?
Exactly. The
Japanese, Koreans.
What he says, it boils down to the banks. That's it. So the only thing that he has is the Jewish principle, and actually it's the Mesopotamian. I mean, this not taking interest is as old as mankind, all right? It's just repeated in the Quran, borrowed from the Jews, and you know, it's just put in there.
Christianity used to forbid Christians from taking interest, which is why it was consigned.
The microphone is very soft.
Sorry, Christianity used to forbid Christians conducting usury.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
So
Yes.
that's why it was.
Common.
It's, I guess you could say, like, Christian capitalism is not that different from Muslim capitalism in terms of what kind of incidental or implicit basis it finds in the scriptures and the theology and the articulation of the religion and the religious, you know, rituals or whatever,
No,
conduct,
it's just throwing
practice.
sand in people's eyes, but people don't understand this, and they just believe
I
this
mean,
because
if you're against capitalism, are you going to also condemn Muhammad? He was a capitalist. He was a merchant working for a an entrepreneur, Khadija. So, you know, I don't know how you get an anti-capitalist platform from Islam.
well, he says it's the banks, all right?
Apparently, this is a religion of miracles.
Yeah, it must be a
The
miracle.
opposite is always the case. So, Muhammad turns out to be an environmentalist, you know, who said don't cut down, you know, don't damage trees. Apart from that time when, you know, he cut down those trees to get to the Banu Nadir, was it? You know, it's just like everything. Muhammad's not a capitalist, apart from when he was a capitalist. You know, it's amazing. You get all things. You can have your cake and eat it too. So
Exactly.
anyway.
And then people cry if you quote authentic texts. And you show authentic texts. Well, this one is not as authentic as the other authentic ones, because the peaceful and nice ones are more authentic than the authentic other non-authentic ones.
Of course. Well, the problem is that, you know, it's authentic according to whom. Different scholars disagree. Is this guy reliable? It's just it's incoherent.
It's
And you do
evolution.
get like
It's
a
the
broad
evolution of
consensus, say with say Bukhari and Muslim, the Sahihain, right? That's generally agreed to be
What are they
authentic.
called? Sahihain?
The Sahihain, it's like the two authentic
The authentics.
ones. So it's like Bahr is sea, Bahrain is the two seas, right? So it's
Oh,
a
I never
country
knew
back.
that. Okay.
Or Dhu el Qarnayn. Qarn is like horn. So
So
Qarnayn is
the
the
name
two
is the
horns.
two. That's why
So
the two comes from.
horn
Okay.
one. Yeah. I don't know. When there's an ain, it's two. So for example, the two Iraqs are called the Iraq Ain.
Ah, the Jalalains, of course, yes.
Jalalain, there you go, exactly. The two Jalals. Jalaluddin al-Mahali and his pupil, the famous Jalaluddin al-Suyuti. Yeah. So that's what that is. Did you know that there are two Iraqs?
No.
Iraq al-Arabi or al-Arab and Iraq. There's an ain in the front. I'm gonna try. I can't do it. Iraq. I can't do the ain in front of the I. I'm sorry, guys. My pronunciation is imperfect. Anyway, Iraq al-Arab and Iraq al-Ajam, to pronounce it very crudely, to anglicize it. Ajam is like non-Arab, so real Ajam usually meant Persian, right? So Ibn Khaldun talks about how the most of the great scholars of Islam were Ajamis, right? Non-Arabs. What he really means is Persians, because they're all Persians, basically. Or Khorasanis, or Iranian peoples in general. So anyway, there's two Iraqs. There's Iraq in what is called Mesopotamia, modern-day Iraq, the lowlands, right? That's Iraq. That's the Arabian Iraq. Then over the Zagros Mountains, there's another lowland. It's also called Iraq, traditionally. And that's the Persian Iraq, or Iraq al-Ajam. So it's pretty interesting. There are two Iraqs. So basically, you can look at it like this. If you look at a map of modern-day Iraq, half of it's controlled by ISIS and the Kurds up north. That area is called, well, the part that ISIS controls, that's the region traditionally called Jazeera. And all the rest of Iraq, that's the region. That is actually the true Iraq. That's the region that was called Iraq traditionally. Right? It's only the southern half of modern day the country called Iraq.
So they
it's
took
also
the region name.
called.
So they took
Yeah,
the
well, it's
region
been something with
name,
everything.
and then
Yeah,
when I mean, all the borders are arbitrary, right? They were done on
yeah,
the drawing board,
approximately.
and then they just took the name of the region for the country.
Yes, exactly. I mean, that's pretty common though. I mean, Sudan was a region, but they ended up calling the country Sudan. I mean, the country called Sudan is only the eastern end of the region called Sudan. The region called Sudan extends all the way to Mauritania. Actually, Mauritania used to be called the Sudanese Republic.
But Mauritania is way out to the
Yeah,
west.
because the region called Sudan, in Arabic I think it was Bilad as-Sudan, the region called Sudan is a wide belt across West Africa. From
I
modern
was
day
going to say
Sudan.
that, but then this must go like the whole southern
No,
part of Sahara.
yeah. No, yes, just south of the Sahara. Right? It's like the Sahel. I think it's synonymous with the Sahel. Which is that belt, just south of the Sahara, like the grasslands. The Sahara is the desert, and then south of that there's a belt of grassland, which is I think the Sudan, and then you have the jungles, which is the southern coast of Africa on that area, West Africa, and then the Congo and whatever, Kenya and all that area. That's the jungle. Pretty interesting.
Okay. Do we have a topic,
So
or
one
should I
day,
open up the chat?
do both. I mean, I've got a couple of things I could talk about, but I have nothing set. And since last time we didn't really have any callers because we didn't put the link out. Better to put it out now and maybe compensate by having more callers this time. In the meantime, I can just talk about a couple of things I've been researching lately, if you like. As is my wont, typically. What do you reckon?
Yeah,
Hello?
go for it. I'm looking for the window because I had so many windows open with this new Google thing that I can't find the gin and tonic window. Oh, goodness.
Let me see. You know what? I haven't posted.
Yeah, there we go. Found it.
Right. And whilst you're doing that, I'm just going to quickly post the show on the Facebook because I have not yet done that. So I apologize. For those
Hello,
who do not know
infidels.
live.
Yes, hello, infidels yourself.
All right. Get me to. I'd like to talk. I think I'd like to talk about the my little short story I'm writing. I'll mention that.
Before you do, let me just bring in this. If anybody wants to join, all right, we're on YouTube and it's very easy to join us. You just go to YouTube, you go to the Gin and Tonic Show, and it's all one word, all right, the Gin and Tonic Show, but you can find us using just Gin and Tonic, and then you click on the About, and then you will see a live link, and that's where you can go. Alternatively, if you are on the Hangout, there is a Q&A, and you can just go into the Q&A, and you can ask questions there as well. And there is already Juice for Cheeses has already asked the question and said, indeed, podcast format like the one on iTunes or G-Podder is very comfortable because sometimes you cannot make the show on time. That's why in the past we've always left it, because this is the beauty of this Hangout thing, because Google bought YouTube, that if you have this Hangout, then it's automatically on YouTube. You don't need to do anything. So the housekeeping efforts have been reduced. If we do it on a separate platform, we would have to then put it back on YouTube because a lot of people are used to seeing it on YouTube. And of course, the added convenience of YouTube is that people can actually leave comments. And I sometimes go through the old comments to see what people have to say. So I don't know. We'll have to find a format and run of the road. So, Kling, take us away.
All right. Sorry, I was.
Have you thought of a pen name? Because L. Ron Hubbard is taken, so you have to think of a new one.
L. Ron Hubbard II. The context for what me and Stop are referring to is I had a great idea the other day. I was just doing whatever, just I don't know, maybe I was researching or writing my essay or for this or that or the other. And then a sudden thought occurred to me. And I thought to myself, what would happen if a religion were to appear suddenly on Earth which looked like it was actually true? What would that look like? What would that phenomenon, that spectacle, how would that manifest practically around the world? If there was a religion that actually looked true. And then I began to think about that, and I think about the consequences and how that might play out in some scenario. And before I knew it, I started writing a short story on the subject. So I thought this is a very, very fun thing to write about. It's fun to explore. And so obviously it would give you some idea or some aspects of that. So obviously it would begin like any other small cult, any other small religion perhaps. This is one possible starting point. Obviously I'm sacrificing ultra logic, right? Because the most logical way for it to be would that every single person suddenly receives a revelation around the entire Earth. But I'm still going to stick to some narrative, funsies. So for the sake of the image of the thing, it begins with a small cult, like your Jehovah's Witness or your Mormons, or Hare Krishnas, just a small group wandering the city, preaching the good word. However, unlike every other religion ever on earth that we know of, or that we can ascertain, when you convert to this religion, to the true religion, the exalted one, I'm going to call it, you have immediate results, right? The moment you convert, you find yourself able to levitate small objects, or to be able to prophesize the future with precise accuracy, with actual precision. So none of this, the Romans will defeat the Persians within 3 to 7 years. None of this crap, this vague, oh yes, the book of Revelation, and then the sun to the sons of the king of the sun, and when he's done, it will be done and done. None of this, and the seventh harlot on the seventh day with the seventh sword of the seventh seal, or whatever. None of this vague stuff where it's like, I think that's referring to 9/11, or maybe it's referring to, when I tripped over today when I was walking down the stairs. No, none of this vague nonsense. I'm talking specific, precise prophecy where on this day, on the 7th of October 2015, the, Qantas Airlines Flight 555 will crash into the Empire State Building, killing 2 people on the 6th floor, and the name of these 2 people are, Bob Book and John Livingstone, right? I'm talking a real prophecy, right? Because you'll notice, and part of the fun function of such a story as this would be to highlight the fact that other real-world religions vis-a-vis what a realistic scenario would look like, or something approximating a realistic scenario. So obviously, most prophecies are just completely vague nonsense, right? Oh yes, there will come a time when there are tall towers and people are trying to outdo each other. What does that mean? Nothing. Yes, it's just this vague nonsense. Whereas a real, what I would expect if I was asked to give what would be a more convincing prophecy, it would be something ultra specific, right? Or in the terms of the levitation thing, that's a really easy, concrete way to demonstrate the truth of religion. If you could suddenly levitate a small object in your hand by concentrating your willpower or invoking prayer, that would be a very concrete way that just overwhelmingly and immediately proves that your religion has results, right? And then it's not like what I'm saying. You might say that's crazy. Why would it be like that? Look at the New Testament. What could the early Christians supposedly do? They could bring people back from the dead. They could talk languages that they had never learned. Speak in tongues. This is what the original speak in tongues is supposed to have been. They could speak all languages and convert all peoples, right? The scenario I'm proposing is not even completely outlandish. It's not even alien. What I'm proposing is merely a religion that actually can fulfill the promises of the scriptures of pre-existing religions. So say if you were to take Islam, for example. I mean, if Islam was really true, you would expect the Quran, reciting the Quran, you would expect Muslims to be able to eat the ajwa dates and be immune to poison. Get bitten by a cobra? No problem. Grab an ajwa date, you'll be fine. So in the canonical Sunni scriptures, right? You've got cancer, don't worry. As we all know, Quran recitations are have great healing properties. So you just recite the Quran and hey, the cancer recedes or whatever. I mean, because in folk Muslim belief, the Quran has magical healing properties, right? And certain hadith mentions certain portions of the Quran which can be used. I think was it scorpion stings or snake bites. I don't remember the precise details. But you know what I mean? It's not even a far cry to expect this to be the case. This is what the scriptures promise. So what I'm exploring is, what if there was a religion that actually came through with these promises? Right? It's an interesting concept. And so then like, I don't know what else would be the implications for such a
go into this one, because WZH is saying that if 2,500 other people would die, then it would be meaningless. No, it's that precise. It means that those two are the only ones who die. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
This is
that's
the
what I
whole
mean.
point. That is the level of precision. What you should actually do is you'd say on the 18th of January 2015, the Dow Jones will sink to 2,587 at 8 o'clock New York time or something like that.
Exactly. This is what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a real prophecy with real predictive capabilities with actual precision. That's what you would expect for an actual prophecy. None of this. Oh yes, the red mist on the morning of the sun of the sun, son of the son of the sun. None of this. Just the meaningless drivel. Oh yes, Nostradamus, the red queen and the black queen of the suit of the heart will combine, and on the fell stroke of the midnight. I used to believe in Nostradamus. Now I look back at it, it's like, this is rubbish. This is so meaningless. It's just meaningless drivel, and people just retrofit it to try and make it fit some sort of context. It's just laughable.
The two towers were the two brothers. I thought, how significant.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, it's just rubbish. So anyway, so what I'm proposing is, imagine if there was a religion where people could actually make a real prediction, something that would actually have precise significance, that you could actually point to and go, oh yeah, okay, not the Romans will be defeated within 2 to 5 or 2 to 7 or 5 to 9 years or whatever it is, but on this exact date, at this exact time, this number of Romans will defeat this number of Persians led by this and that commander in this precise location. Nothing like that. The nearest land, it says. What does that even mean? Nearest land relative to what? Well, if I'm to take it seriously that this is supposed to be Palestine, then guess what? The nearest land to Palestine is Jordan. Is northwestern Arabia. So I mean, anyway, so it's very strange. So anyway, so in this scenario then, and also life quality, your quality of life would immediately and noticeably improve if you accept this religion, right? So everything points to it being intuitively as a human true, right? So none of this like, well, I'm like religious people live slightly statistically happier lives or something. No, I mean you're emotional, and none of this like people like you have some people who when they join a cult enter this so-called blissed out mode, right? Where everything's just wonderful and golden and whatever, and it's they're just like, have you ever watched the YouTuber? What's his name? Converted to Islam, the ginger convert. Have you ever seen that
No,
YouTuber?
I've got enough pain in the week.
Looks like he's stoned the whole time. He's got that blissed out religious visage. But you know what I mean? But it's actually far more common from Eastern religions. It's far more common from the mystical, so-called mystical traditions, right? Where people are like, yeah, I've got the truth. And they're like, oh, it's so blissed out and stuff. You know, I'm not talking about something like, you know, something so fake and faux and what do you call it when it's manufactured? It's something that's when it's forced like that. You know, there's a word that starts with C, and I don't remember what it is. Whatever. Something so forced as that. I mean, like, genuine emotional well-being and balance automatically comes to their lives. You know, they stop being in conflict with people unnecessarily. Whatever. Life quality noticeably and dramatically improves in like an authentic fashion, and not in this sort of fake kind of conjured kind of way. You know, like again, this might be something that you could expect, you know, or at least you know this would be one of the benefits of joining the true religion that has appeared on earth, the exalted path, right? Kings, celebrities, and politicians would all lend their public support to the movement, right? Poets and musicians would compose devotional hymns, paeans, and eulogies in praise of the exalted one. Scientists and scholars would abandon their careers of hubris and sophistry to devote themselves to studying and understanding the exalted one. None of this nonsense, you know. I don't know.
Job to stand-up comedian.
I may well do. So anyway, it's a fun scenario to think of. What would a true religion? How would that play out if a true religion were to appear? I mean, and how would the? But imagine how exponential that would be. Like it's not like most. See, this is the key point. Is that most religion? Sorry, let me rephrase it. All religions that I am aware of look fake. They don't look like they're true. As in, there really is a god or whatever magical forces at play. They don't look like that, right? But what would happen if you did have a religion that looked like that? How fast would that religion grow? None of this, oh, it takes 100 years to conquer North Africa. Well, wow, what a miracle that it took the Arabs 100 years to conquer North Africa, to get all the way to Spain. That's not a miracle. That's not as impressive as the Mongols or Alexander. But that Iran took them like 40 years or something to conquer all of Iran. You know, I mean, okay, you know, I expect better from the true religion. It took the Christians ages to convert the Roman Empire. You know, like, oh, it spread so fast that it took them, what, 400 years or something to fully take over the Roman Empire. Come on, that's not miraculous. I mean, the Mongols are something better. There's an impressive speed to conquer half the world. But even then, most people, they weren't really doing it in the name of any particular religion, as far as I'm aware. And most people didn't convert to their religion. And the Mongols ended up converting to Buddhism, Christianity, and Islam, right? So what I'm proposing, imagine if there was a really true religion that had those immediate results. People would convert. You could convert people just exponentially, right? Every neighbor converts their neighbor. All you have to do is say this prayer, say the Shahada for this religion, and immediate results, immediately observably, quote unquote, true, right? Like, wouldn't that be something to behold? And so, like, and how would imagine the pious adherents of the old religions? How would they react? With fear and violence to the sudden meteoric rise of a new religion. But again, right? There would be no martyrs. There would be no martyrs for the religion of the exalted one, which is this is the provisional name I'm running with for this imaginary religion. Why would there be no martyrs? Because all prayers would be answered. All members of the exalted one being persecuted would be miraculously saved from harm, and all those who would move against the exalted one would find themselves impaired and unable to execute their violent intentions. Now, again, you might say, well, that's crazy. What kind of scenario is that? This is what is depicted, for example, with Muhammad. What happens? He's fleeing from the Quraysh from Makkah, and then he goes into the cave and a fucking spider. Quickly, he wings away over the cave entrance. So the Quraysh go, oh, there's obviously no one's come through here because there's a spider web in the way, and they leave. So again, what the scenarios that I am proposing are not out of nowhere. All I'm doing is taking the actual scenarios predicted or promised or declared by religious texts and actually saying this in real life, right? So I'm not even asking too much.
Okay.
And I think within a month.
You realize that the Exalted One, Teo, what does that remind you of? Theos, and you're back with gods. I've got a question. You can't do this with logic. We know here that Muslims believe that it's true Islam. The same goes for Christianity, Hinduism, and all the cultures. The truth is, they think they already have discovered all of this. It is for them. It is true for them. It is already. They really believe that everything is true, and that they have already shown and proven that it's all scientifically accurate.
Is this you saying this, or is this this swap comment? A question. No, but see, it's demonstrably not the case. The only thing that it's true for is for the founding of the religion. That's why we have these stories. And then, you know, when the religions come out of obscurity and into, I don't know, you know, the more that religions get closer and closer to, you know, observable reality and scientifically ascertainable, you know, conditions, I don't know, for some reason the miracles just vanish. They just fall away. You know, now it's gotten to the point where the miracles only happen in someone's story that someone told someone, my friend of a friend, my mother, when I was a child. It all ends up in obscurity, and it's never able to be actually tested or ascertained. Why? Because it didn't happen. Because they don't happen. There are no miracles that we can observe. Right? There are no suspensions of the laws of physics that we can ascertain. Right? Everything is occurring naturalistically, so far as can be understood. There are no miracles. There are no, it'd be so. James Randi has $1 million challenge. I mean, I don't know if maybe the money's been reduced now, but for a long time there was $1 million challenge to anyone who could produce anything supernatural, preternatural, any break in naturalistic whatever processes, however you would define it. And there were no takers. No one succeeded.
Well, there were attempts. I mean, a million. Well,
and they all failed. They all turned out to be rubbish.
But a couple of hundred thought they actually had this. And this is the point. It's self-delusion that is happening here. There are a lot of people who are not lying. They actually believe this. A lot of people believe they have these powers. A lot of people believe if they put their hand close to somebody that this will somehow concentrate energy and they will transfer energy and things. They actually believe this. They are not liars. It's not true, but it doesn't make them liars because they actually believe they have these capabilities.
There is a level of self-delusion amongst a lot of, I don't know what percentage of the population of Earth you chalk that up to, but I mean, they do exist. I used to be of that ilk, for example, when I was in my New Age stage, when I was much younger. But again, it's really fake. It's so fake. Like it's like, oh yeah, I can just bestow some healing energies on you. That's nothing. Come on, give me something real. Levitate an object. You know, it's always so ephemeral. It's always so weak and peripheral and meaningless. You know what I mean? Like, what I'm proposing is, it's like, with the prophecies, yeah, people think they can prophesize, and what do we get? Meaningless drivel. What I'm saying is something concrete, something precise. You know what I mean?
Would this be free will?
What do you mean? Oh, if we could prophesize.
No. The people, when they are joining.
Prophesize the future precludes the possibility of free will. How can if you don't know for certain it's going to happen, then you don't know for certain. If you know for certain it's going to happen, then guess what? It's destined to happen, and you can't change it. Otherwise, you wouldn't know that it's going to happen, and therefore there is no choice in the matter. It's going to happen. Foreknowledge precludes free will. They're logically incoherent. They can't exist together. And no amount of trying to remove, like say for God, for example, well, God's outside of time. It doesn't make a difference, right? If the event is set to happen, it doesn't matter if God's either sitting at the beginning of time or if he's sitting outside of time watching the events that are going to happen. They're going to happen, right? And if they're not going to happen, then guess what? Then God didn't know that they're going to happen. If God knows for a fact they're going to happen, then there's a set course. That's the only way he can know that it's going to happen. And if there's not a set course, then he doesn't have full knowledge, does he? Because he doesn't know it's going to happen. So taking God outside of the time stream and putting him beyond time and space doesn't change anything. You still have the same problem. The analogy you could use is that instead of God being in the movie, God's outside watching the movie from start to finish. Guess what? The movie's still set. There's still the narrative is still set in stone. So there's an incoherence. There's an incompatibility between foreknowledge and free will. Anyway, that's a segue. Welcome to the show, Vegzur Hol something. Vegzur Hole? Ule? I don't know. My German's
Weg zur Hölle. I'm German.
Welcome.
Hi.
Stop lying.
Hey?
Who lies? Me or him?
You, not him.
Why? What was the lie?
He swears not German.
The word Weg zur Hölle is German, not I am German.
The language.
Yeah.
It's the German language. Maybe the Swiss dialect of the German language, but the German language nonetheless. I hate the term German though, because it's so confusing. Because German it's like the term Iranian, right? Iran is a country, but also you have the Iranian peoples, which refers to Persians, Kurds, Tajiks. You know what I mean? So the Germans include the Dutch and the English. But it's so confusing because then you also have the country called Germany. And so the German languages surely would include English, Anglo-Saxon and Nederlandsisch and the Norwegian languages, right? The Germanic languages. But you also have the country Germany and the language German. So confusing. This is just the peculiarities of the English and how it's defined in the English language, I suppose.
Yeah, right.
But even in German, right? What do the Germans call themselves? Deutsch. What do the Dutch call themselves? Dutch. Right? It's the same word, just different dialects. So the confusion still persists even outside of English. Anyway, this is irrelevant. So, what's going on? Do you have any thoughts, questions, queries?
No, I want to go back to my question I asked about the truth. I mean, like I already said, you can't compare with logic. If a Muslim, no matter what you show him, or a Christian, that you show them the reality, it doesn't matter because they know they are truth. So it doesn't mean anything, your scenario. It doesn't reflect the reality. It doesn't represent reality. It does not show the reality of their reality. So it doesn't matter how often you repeat this and how often you show them the reality that is not bound to any thoughts, but it is bound to happenings in the universe. So I still think your scenario means nothing to them, even if it comes true. If somebody just can predict anything in the future, they still are to their Allah or to their Yahweh or to their Jesus, whatever.
Are you talking? Well, in terms of obviously yes. In terms of like the parable that I'm say writing or whatever, will the message be lost on religious people? Will it be ignored? Obviously, but in terms of within my narrative, I would have an answer to that. How would you get into the? Because on the inside, religious people do experience doubt. Right. This is we've all been religious. We've all gone through the process of experiencing doubt from time to time. Now, in my scenario, if you've got the true God, this true whatever it is, this exalted one, then all it would take would be for a moment of doubt, inner doubt, for this exalted one to make his presence known to begin to exert an influence. So I within the scenario, within this fictional narrative of a true religion that could truly influence people, that wouldn't be a problem, because it would only take, in a doubt, for there to be a gap to fill in this scenario.
And
True religion, it's obviously true to everyone.
Okay, but how does one convert to this religion?
No, you don't convert.
I haven't figured out the details yet.
No, it's not a conversion. You need to understand. Let me just explain a little bit. What this is, it's a theoretical mind game, all right?
I understand.
The question, what would a real religion look like? Then you sort of give it some attributes, and you flesh it out. So you have the skeleton. You say, okay, you've got the exalted one, and he manifests himself by doing blah 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 blah. And now you need to flesh this out. And then once you have this, you then need to go and look, how does that compare to a real religion? And that's when the whole thing breaks down. Because then you're right. Then the real religion will say, yeah, but hang on, we don't have this, we don't have this, we don't have this, we don't need this, and anyway, we are much better than you are. Of course it does. But it's a mind game to compare a theoretically perfect religion that is absolutely 100% true, and it's provable with evidence and everything, compared to what we have today. So it's just just an experiment to see what would happen if there were. Am I expressing this correctly? Lee?
Sure. Right, and I would say though that say in my scenario, you wouldn't have to really do anything per se, at this point anyway, maybe I'll change my mind. But like all it would take would be to accept the reality and the truth of the Exalted One in your mind, and that's all it would take. So none of this shahada, what, God needs it to be verbal, or there has to be sound waves for it to be real.
No, the Exalted One knows.
Yeah, he'll know that you've accepted him in your heart. That's all it takes. Right? Yeah. So So I don't know. It's a fun exercise. I've enjoyed thinking about it. So in my scenario, within a month, the whole world is know the truth. The exalted path, what I'll call this religion, reigns supreme over the whole earth. And every member of
what was a perfect religion? It would be perfect from the beginning. Meaning, as soon as the first Homo sapiens arose, he already knew everything about the true religion. So why this waiting?
Exactly,
well,
because that's what logic kicks.
Honestly, I'm going to I'm thinking of. Okay, so have you ever heard of Lovecraft? H.P. Lovecraft. Ever heard of Cthulhu?
Cthulhu, yes.
Yeah, so sorry, my pronunciation obviously is the layperson's pronunciation. You're right. So I've been getting into a bit of Lovecraftian, the Cthulhu mythos lately. I've been playing some Cthulhu games and reading up on the sort of the world, the mythos, the whatever, the literature. And I'm really enjoying it. And so, and for those who aren't aware, the sort of the key features of the Cthulhu mythos or Lovecraftian horror, or whatever you want to call it. By the way, Lovecraft was a seminal sort of horror fiction writer. He's kind of, he is to fantasy or fiction horror what Asimov is, say, to sci-fi, or Tolkien is to fantasy or high fantasy, whatever. Terminology can get tricky. So he's a seminal 1920s, 1930s horror fiction writer, and the key themes in his sort of writing was like the irrelevance of humanity within the cosmos. The universe is this gigantic, uncaring, cold place, and we're just completely irrelevant within the grand scheme of things. And there are vast forces within the universe, vast, you might call them gods or deities or beings, cosmic beings who exist, who either have no care for us, just do not care about us, or may even be malevolently disposed towards us. And it's a terrifying existence, and there are these malicious or psychopathic forces at work, and we're all fucked. That's sort of the if I've got it correctly, this is sort of the Cthulhu vibe, also the Lovecraft vibe, right? And so this is where you get these sort of narratives of Cthulhu or whatever, or well, I don't know all the names, the elder things or whatever the hell, right?
By the way, the name I was looking for yesterday was Philip K. Dick.
Okay. And so everything is sort of
Doesn't say
there's just sort of
anything, okay.
everything is sort of profoundly sinister. This is this profoundly sinister vibe. So what I'm thinking is, because I'm really enjoying this sort of literature or vibe or I don't know, culture narrative at the moment, this sort of Lovecraftian vibe, this Lovecraftian milieu, I don't know, whatever you call it. I'm thinking maybe the story ends like that, right? So what could there be? How could you have some sort of, you know, realistic deity? Well, it turns out it's some sort of Lovecraftian malicious deity that consumes the world in the end. I don't know. Something fun like that, you know. So, you know, the Exalted One will be returning soon, you know. At first, only the most devout and the most astute could sense this fact. It could only be detected in the strange alignment of the planets and the stars, or discerned in the arcane carvings of ancient monoliths and pyramid temples. What was the phrase that you used last night, Stop, when we were talking about this?
I can't remember.
The chips in the bowl or something?
Oh, no, it was the Kellogg's cornflakes, how they arrange in the bowl. Yeah.
Yeah. It's, you know, savants and madmen glimpse this truth in the flight patterns of birds and the sighing of the wind, whilst librarians and archivists suddenly recognize the revelation in the seemingly random arrangement of book titles arrayed on their shelves. You know, like, just, and then everyone, eventually the whole world knows the Exalted One is returning. Everyone gets really excited. Everything reaches fever pitch. You know, everyone on Earth is converted. We're all awaiting the return of the Exalted One, and then he appears. I don't know, and then it's fucking Cthulhu, or whatever, you know, something fun like that. I don't know. So I might put a fun twist on the end of the story, just for the entertainment value or the loves, whatever they say. Anyway, this is just a fun exercise. All right, welcome to the show. Also, Juice for Cheeses. How's it going?
Hey, no, I'm mostly fine, except that doesn't matter. Actually, I like your analogy very much because it would convince me. So if we had the scenario as the one that you opposed, that would be convincing for me, for sure, much more convincing than the current religious claim. But there is a common. There is already an anticipated objection from the theist side, is that where in your scenario would be the freedom of will, because once everything is once you can demonstrate everything, then there is no freedom of will to believe or not to believe. And
no, because you could still choose to deny it if you wanted. But I mean, it's so convincing.
It's so not the belief. It's the action. It's a different level. We're not talking about belief. We're not talking epistemology here. We're talking about action. Because you are right. It's beyond belief. But now the free will is at a physical level. Because now you either go and you vote with your feet. In other words, you go that direction or you don't. So you either accept it or you don't. But now it's a fact. It's like, you know, evolution. Either you accept evolution, the theory of evolution, or you do not. But it is a fact. It is there. It is existing. It can be demonstrated and everything. You have the evidence. It's just up to you now whether you accept it or not. So it's a different level.
Well,
I don't know, I mean,
that
do we have the free
can't
will?
be true because you already know. In the example of evolution, people just even if they believe a little bit in it, they still deny it because they don't know all facts. But
Yeah,
in
see,
this,
what I'm proposing is more like you accept it as true, like the sun is true, right? It's just obviously true. I don't understand why that would be bad for free will. I mean, like
No, I accept the.
this is the scenario that religious people. This is the scenario that the scriptures kind of propose: is that God is obviously real. Look at all the signs; He's everywhere. It's just so obvious. Like the Quran repeatedly says, right? Look at the signs. Look at the ayat. Look at the trees in the sky. It's just so obvious. It's everywhere. So it's like that, but actually real, where it is obvious, right? And not like just a post hoc rationalization and the bloody design fallacy. But actually, also the appeal to design or whatever. But actually, really obviously true, right? On the level of the sun exists. Right, that would be the proposal. Again, what I'm proposing is isn't that far off from what religions pretend is real. So, as I said, the Quran does act as though this is the case, except that in the case of the Quran, it's not. Whereas in the scenario I'm proposing, it is obviously true, right? So, I mean, if religious people have a problem with that, then they should have a problem with their own scripture, because all I'm doing is and most of what I'm doing is taking what is predicted in their scriptures as being true, and then saying a scenario where it's actually true, right? So it's, again, like, there's a problem with their scripture.
Okay, but now if you translate this back, how does the free will issue then translate back into Islam, for example? How can you have free will, and how can you not have free will?
What do you mean?
Well, if you say you don't require free will for the exalted one, for Theo, and you say that it's obvious that the sun is the center of our solar system, it's just there, you can see it, it's obvious, it's demonstrable, it's up to you whether you want to accept it or not. The same level, what you just said, the signs in the Quran are obvious. How does that now translate back into Islam, where you say, okay, the free will that you have there, is the free will on the different level implicated in any way?
I understand what you mean. It's like if we take the Quran seriously, then it kind of precludes free will, right? Because it's so obviously true. There is no free will in choosing to believe in God.
That's the same
There's
thing,
only
right?
delusionally deny that it's true. That's the only, either you just accept the obvious reality that it's just everywhere, as you can obviously see, or you just are in denial and you whatever. You reject. You're ungrateful, kufr, right? Whatever, however the exact definition is. It's an interesting question. Hadn't really thought about it like that before. I think what the scenario that sort of the Quran envisages is not that people are really denying that God exists. The scenario that seems to be really supposed is it's whether or not people choose to obey or disobey God, right? The question of whether or not God exists is just so obvious, and even then, within the Quranic discourse, the mushrikun are presupposed as believing in God. They just believe in some other stuff as well, right? So belief in God is pretty much universally, like it's just taken for granted, right? It's just obviously true. And so the issue is whether or not you obey God, right? Or maybe whether or not you accept that He is the only one, or whether or not there are a couple of other extras on, whether or not you accept the Islamically acceptable intermediaries of angels, or the Islamically unacceptable intermediaries of, demigods, as if there's like an operational difference, What are your thoughts?
But in the case of the Quran, we have some verses that are talking about hardening the heart of the people and closing their eyes, etc. So they are predestined to be non-believers. So they can't deny because they are made like that.
Yeah, that's another issue, is that the Quran indicates basically determinism. So it's kind of weird that people are punished in hell. Like, because why are you punished for doing bad things? Why did you do bad things? Well, guess what? Because God deigned that I would be a bad person and go to hell in the first
No, but
place.
that's not the cause. The first cause is that you are disbelieving, and then God hardens your heart.
Yeah, that's just the case of the Pharaoh, but in other words, you see, like, they don't believe because God closed their heart from the beginning.
There's a reason.
What's the reason?
There is no reason in some cases.
No. You are the cause because you have free will, and this is exactly the point that Jews for Jesus was making. If you have free will, then you are the one who is initiating the whole thing. So once you have initiated the process, then it's only a reaction of God to your stubbornness.
But where are you getting this initiated process thing from, though? Is this
apologetics?
Okay, well, I'm looking at the Quran, not the post hoc rationalizations.
Okay. No, I'm playing devil's advocate here because this is what they do. This is what they say.
All right. Well, what they say is obviously seems untenable comparative, say, to in Surah Al-Baqarah in Surah 6. As for those who disbelieve, it makes no difference whether you warn them or not. They will not believe. God has sealed their hearts and their ears and their eyes are covered. They will have a great torment. Later says, there is a disease in their hearts which God has added to. So, prima facie, I mean, it just seems like the unbelievers are made so by God.
God has just made us to put us in hell.
Yeah, basically. I mean, and you find this even more explicitly in Hadith, where it says how after a month or something, when you're in the fetus or something, or after like a specific time when you're still in embryonic form or as a fetus, or when you're still in your mother's womb, an angel comes down and your soul gets put in, and it's decided already whether or not you're going to be a good person or a bad person.
It's after 42 days.
Oh, is that how long it is? There you go. So you have the same thing in the Hadith.
Yeah, but they're saying this is only recorded. What they say is you are recorded that you exist. The outcome is up to you later. You see, they're being sly here because what they're saying is it doesn't really say that your entire future is being written down. What is being recorded is who you are and what you are. What you make of it is then up to you.
Well, it seems kind of tenuous.
It is. It's absolute. It's utter bullshit. Come on. I mean, the whole concept is ridiculous. If you think about that God is omniscient, and he should know in advance what he is creating. He knows already whether he's creating somebody whose heart is hardened, so he doesn't have to harden the heart. Oh my goodness, it's too early in the morning for this. So, it's stupid. It's completely ridiculous to think that a God who knows everything can produce somebody who doesn't know what he's going to be doing.
Well, it's like in Christianity. The different doctrines cherry pick the scripture to justify their respective doctrines.
Okay, I've got another question. Are we done with this topic now, or is there anything left that we
we can move on. If anyone has any suggestions, I'm
just a small question to Klingschor. Will this scenario be a story written by you, or was that just a thought?
No. I'm just writing a short story. Yeah, so it is. I'll probably post it on my blog or something. It's only going to be like just 2 pages or something, or 3 pages long. I just thought it'd be fun to write a little story exploring this scenario, and then maybe give it a Lovecraftian ending. I don't know. It could be fun.
Okay.
Then the Exalted One appeared, and he had tentacles, and the world was fucked. I don't know.
And he hit some kryptonite.
Something.
Jews for Cheeses, just a technicality. You had an input there regarding the podcast, and I see now the question is gone. Are you able to retract questions, or why has this disappeared?
I have deleted the question.
So you can, because I thought am I drunk or whatever? I saw a question there regarding the podcast, and now it's gone. I thought, what? Okay. So,
Incidentally, I just want to point this out. This is totally random, but for those who know of the YouTuber How the World Works, real name, I think, Lee Gorin, who is a notable young conservative, vlogger, who famously, for example, was in battle with Thunderfoot over education, I think, at one point.
this nobody, zero?
He looks extremely similar to H.P. Lovecraft when Lovecraft is wearing glasses. They look really similar. It's like, surprise, Lovecraft has survived until the present day through some arcane means and is now taken to a career of conservative vlogging on the internet. So he continues. Yes. Anyway.
Okay, I've got a serious question.
Yes.
And this is, I find this a highly fascinating question. Do you know of any compilation of ijma, Sunni ijma? Because, and the question is, I want to see if there are ijma on certain topics that have changed over the years.
I do not, I'm afraid. I've tried to find such a thing, because I thought it'd be very interesting to see a list of consensus issues. But I only know if something is an ijma if I'm reading an academic source which says, the scholars say there is an ijma on this issue. There is a consensus on this issue. That's the only way I know whether or not there's an ijma or something.
Because it would be fascinating to have one topic to see how this was handled like 500 years ago.
Yeah. But yeah, so I'm afraid I know very little. I cannot be of much service in this regard.
Sorry, Molid. I think this would be brilliant to show the evolution of the legal understanding of what is happening inside Islam. That'd be a fascinating topic.
At a guess, I would say ijma can change. But it depends how you define ijma. If ijma is the general consensus or approximate consensus of the traditional or classical scholars, then no, can't change, obviously. But if ijma is just whatever the majority of scholars happen to think at any given moment, then yes, obviously that can change. I guess it would depend how you define it.
Yeah, because, all right, can somebody explain to me what this is? Because the whole thing is based or centered around objective morality. Now, I maintain it doesn't exist. Can anybody explain to me, am I wrong? Is there something I'm missing? What the fuck is objective morality?
The idea is that somehow there's a magical, universal, cosmic standard of right and wrong. And so that's the objective morality.
But this is, humans make morality, all right? So it must...
Yeah, no, this is something that I only really clicked
How can
recently.
it be objective?
Because, for me, what I would say is, obviously, there is no truly objective morality. That's just demonstrable. In terms of factual reality, our morality is a product of our evolution, so it's an extremely contextual, evolutionary and societal, cultural, contextual, criteria that we have, which I'd guess, and now I'm going off into very approximate information here because I'm not particularly well educated on the subject. So if you are well versed in this, feel free to correct me. But it's my understanding that within human nature, say, we have a generally set spectrum of behavior. We have conflicting sets of impulses, which arose from our evolutionary development. So we have on one hand the impulse of opposition of us versus them, of antagonism, of aggression, which is the sort of war for resources kind of mentality, the in-group, out-group mentality, which will arise when you're in competition with obviously rival groups, right? Say, one pack of wolves against another pack of wolves, or whatever, right? There's competition over resources. This is you might say, the conservative sort of morality, the us versus them, in-group, out-group, hostility, whatever. Then you have another sort of set of values, which is collaborative, empathetic, inclusive sort of sentiments or emotions. And this is in order to survive, we have to work together as a group. It's better to collaborate. That's better for survival. It's that sort of set of values. And so it seems like often conservative, liberal conflicts almost comes down to a conflict between these different conflicting sets of values. Right? You have your people who are tolerant and inclusive and let's all get along, and you have people who are in-group, out-group. No, the whatever, whoever the boogeyman is for their generation, the Catholics / Jews / Muslims / whoever the fuck, communists / whoever it is at their given time, taking us over, undermining us. We're in a survival. We're in a battle for survival against this insidious invasion of Catholic Italians and Irish or whatever. Going back to 1800s America or whatever. The Mexicans are flooding us from the south and taking over the lands which, P.S. we stole from them. Anyway, and so my point is that there is this sort of pre-programmed what seems to be pretty much pre-programmed spectrum of human values that are pretty common throughout societies, and it really depends upon your context as to which values get preeminence. So if you're in an affluent or well-off or secure position, it allows more for the collaborative sort of ethics to develop. If you're in a war zone,
where's objective?
Hey?
That is morality, but where's the objective?
It's not objective, but it's the closest you'll get, I think, is to look at what's sort of our natural instincts. That's the closest you're going to get. There is no objective standard. But one thing I realized, because what I would say is, so there is no objective morality, really. What I stick by is a principle. I have an ethical principle, which is to try and maximize well-being and minimize harm. Now, we can argue over what is well-being and what is harm, but that's my axiom. That's my ethical principle that I try to live by. My fundamental assumption, and arbitrary it may be, is that it's better for people to be benefited, or to have well-being, and it's worse or it's less desirable for people to suffer unnecessarily. This is approximately the sort of axiom that I go by. And you might say, and I've talked to religious people, and they've said, this is just arbitrary. It's true, it is kind of arbitrary. But what I never realized was the way to understand the alternative, which is the religious morality. What they would say is, our morality is objective. Our morality, yours is just this arbitrary principle, which it is, but ours, which it is insofar as it, does sort of conform to certain human instincts. So it's not completely arbitrary, but it is pretty arbitrary. But what's the alternative? Religious people would say our alternative is our God-given morality, which is objective. This is universal, creator of the universe. But that's false. That's not the alternative. The comparison is not between the objective morality of God and my arbitrary subjective human principle. That's a false analogy. That's not the real situation. That's a misconstrual of the actual situation. What's really being compared here is my arbitrary ethical principle, versus your book. That's the real comparison here. You've got an ancient book, and I've got my ethical principle. That's the actual comparison here. And I don't know. For a while there, I forgot that was the real situation, right? And you'll get lulled into this false argument where it's it's my theology, but no, it's not. It's literally an ancient book from like more than 1,000 years ago versus your ethical principle. That's the actual. This is what we have on the playing field. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, but your emotional, ethnical thoughts are also driven from the past. You read something, or you see something, or you have conquered a situation that you build upon this ethical views. The same goes for any believer. So I don't see a real difference in this case.
On the most basic level, sure, there is none, in the sense that everything we have is just acquired culture. I mean, it goes without saying, I think. Literally everything you are and do and think and have is the product of past experiences and past phenomena. So, that's...
Okay, that's all morality, but what you are saying then is the objective morality is just the word objective you substitute with God.
Yeah, that's how religious people would understand it. The alternative is that, but there's a conundrum that is postulated. I don't remember who it is. Eurith something or other, some Greek guy. And the idea is God? Is it? Oh, Eusifro. Is that what it is? How does it go? Is God?
No, it's the. Are the commands of a god good because it's a god, or are the commands good because God follows what is good?
Yeah, there you go. And so this is the old kind of, and this is like I think this went down to the sort of the Mutazilite debate within Islam. The idea was, because the implication is, if it's good just because God said so, then morality is not objective. Morality is actually subjective. It's the subjective whims of God, right? Which does change over time because, the Quran, abrogation, there you go. God has changed his mind. God has changed the ruling, right? Christianity as well, Old Testament, New Testament, now it's abrogated and we have a new deal with Jesus. Whatever, okay. So, it's not like this is just purely hypothetical. The religious scriptures present us with examples of this. So it's obviously not objective, it is God's subjective whim. That's what is actually basis. And if you say no, actually
that makes more sense now, yeah.
And if you say there is actually an objective moral standard that God happens to coincide with, one, you're limiting God. Right? Is God all powerful if he's limited to this non-God standard? But the problem is here, then you don't need God, do you? If there is an objective standard that exists exterior to God or interior to God, you actually don't need God. Theoretically, you could use some other way to ascertain, like reason, to ascertain the objective morality without the recourse to revelation. And that was the Mutazilite position, is that you could use reason.
But does God evolve?
It's got to evolve. What, in reality or in religious?
If you have objective morality, all right, God said, all right, you shouldn't do this or you should do that, and that is okay, and this is not. Okay, now, 2,000 years later, does God feel that something has changed and something should be different?
Oh, well, I don't know. I mean, maybe the religious people would say, well, it was a long-term plan to phase out, for example, alcohol. Right? So maybe the objective was for there to be no alcohol at all, but then it's the question, well, why would God allow it? It's kind of just post hoc rationalizations. Or if we just look at the text as it is, we have
God changed his mind about incest, okay? Because initially it was okay, and then it wasn't. Now, is there going to be a time when it comes back?
What do you mean? What's up?
No, he never changed his mind. That was all along his plan, like Klingschor mentioned.
Okay, so he said, I'm going to create the humans, but I'm incapable of creating 50,000, so I'll create 2. I will allow incest, and as soon as they've reached the magic limit of 50,000, no more.
Okay, I understand what you mean now. Yeah.
Okay, so there's no changing in morality. And the alcohol was, well, when I give alcohol to the guys, after they have been drinking alcohol for 200,000 years, then I'm going to say, well, actually, it's not so good for you, and I will prohibit this. Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Well, one of the positions in the Quran is that there is a time when alcohol was just limited, that you shouldn't be drunk while you pray.
Yeah.
So that's actually an evidence from the Quran that the position changed.
Yeah, but how long was that for? How long was that valid?
Are we talking in reality, or are we talking
reality.
Islamic tradition? Well, in reality, we have no idea.
No.
Probably.
I mean, how does that translate? Because the point is quite a good one, because you have these 4 different stages of alcohol, right? And people say, well, this was a gradual phasing in of the no alcohol, or the prohibition of alcohol.
It was a post-hoc rationalization.
Yeah, but how long was that valid for? How long do Muslims understand you were allowed to drink, you were allowed to drink a little, you were not allowed to drink, and it was completely to be avoided?
I don't know. I would have to consult the Asbab Nuzul literature to find that out. I'm sure there are hadith on the matter.
Because I've never come across the actual implementation. It's always theoretical. Well, it was in stages and blah blah. But I've never heard the real implementation factor. Well, for 200 years you were allowed to, and then after 200 years he said no, now it's less. So I've never heard
some
that.
hadiths in the Sahih Bukhari, at least in the German, I remember, that talk about, and then this verse was relieved because some guys were drunk and pissed in the mosque, some Bedouins, etc. So I think in Sahih Bukhari you find plenty of examples.
Yeah, because I know that there are, but it doesn't say at this point it was decreed that you shouldn't.
Well, this is the problem with hadith, is that they're pretty atomistic. They're pretty, like, they're just isolated chunks, of stories. It's hard to contextualize.
Yeah, but that's the problem of the Muslims, not our problems, to
break
our brains about that all day long. So just leave this problem to the Muslims.
Yeah, but the thing is, if this was 23 years, I mean, if the Quran was revealed over a time period of 23 years, then it would mean that if this was revealed, like, let's say in 612 or 613, that you should reduce your alcohol. Then for 5 years they were allowed to drink a little bit. Then 630 it was revealed that there was a total stop. So there was an in-between period between 612 and 630. Is that correct then? Is the logic correct?
It has to be correct.
Well, see, obviously the implication. Alcohol, I mean, obviously for a time period alcohol was allowed, just not in this specific context. That's like now, you can't drink whilst you're driving. So if we were to go and say you can't drink while driving, it's like, well, okay, that doesn't mean you can't drink at all. Drinking in general is fine. You just can't drink when you're driving, right? Same kind of thing, I guess.
But in general, we can say God had his plan, and has still his plan, and from a non-believer perspective, view it, we see that the human being has written some verses in the Quran, of course. In my case, I think it's all from a human being, and God has to form for the non-believers a new rule.
Well, we're going to have to reinterpret the Quran pretty soon, because up until now it's always been alcohol, all right? Alcohol is prohibited, but it doesn't mention alcohol in the Quran. And now that cannabis is being legalized more and more, I envisage that in 5-10 years it's going to be like quite a normal thing to either have a drink or have a smoke or both or something like that. So then the interpretation of the Quran will need to be changed again, because then it's no longer alcohol. Then they have to go back to whatever clouds the mind, and then it's going to be alcohol and cannabis, or whatever it is that you're going to be taking as a substance.
I don't think so, because in Yemen you have this I don't know the name of this this substance, these leaves. They chew all day long. What?
Cut or something?
Could be. I really don't remember. But they all day long chew these leaves and get numb in the mouth, and they like that. So there's also a drug. I think they don't need to reinterpret the Quran for that. They do it anyway. So
alcohol. So I mean, when cannabis becomes more popular, I suppose this will have to include cannabis then.
I think it's khat. It's either khat or khat.
like I said, I have no idea how it's called, but there are leaves and they make them malnumb and the thoughts a little bit slower or faster, whatever. I never tried. But at least they knew the Quran, they are a Sharia state, and still they take these things in their mouth.
In Russian Central Asia, it's quite common to, also among Muslims, to smoke, what do you call them, water pipes, with all kinds of ingredients. So I don't think that poses so much of a problem.
Mm-hmm. And we have still the main problem from the Quran. It's for the Muslims the word of God. It's not like in Christianity or Judaism. Those are stories. You can read the Bible and you see a chronologically a line. You read this as a story. But in the case of the Quran, the Muslims think it's the word of God and it can't be changed. So I think the Muslims have a very big problem to make a new Quran that stays in the time, in the presence.
Well, this is why I like this Irshad so much, because she says exactly that. She says, let's make it modern, let's leave all the shit out.
Yeah, she can try, but then people like ISIS or Daesh, however you want to call it, declare her or him or whoever it is who says that as a non-believer and needs to be killed.
She's considered a heretic. The same as this Taj Haga, Dr. Taj Haga in the UK. He's also considered a heretic because he allows women to enter the mosque through the front door next to a man, and he actually prayed behind a woman in the mosque. So he's considered a heretic, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't...
You mentioned before that it's unique in Islam, and I would like to object to that, because from my experience with Judaism, the first 5 books of the first 5 books of Moses, they are considered to be literal word of God, and the same is the usual story is that nothing could be added or removed, so they also interpreted. They are supposed to be interpreted quite literally. The difference,
really?
I think.
So the Torah is the word of God. The Torah.
Yes.
Ah. So then
Torah
that would then help them. That would resolve the problem, perhaps, of the fact that the Torah, which is supposed to be authored by Moses, notes Moses' death. So it's maybe you can get around that by God was actually the author.
Well, the traditional rabbinical opinion is that the Torah has been written by Moses from the words of God as he was there on the Mount Sinai or something, and
the whole
he
thing
was provided with prophetic. One of the explanation of the record of his own death is that Moses has been provided with prophetic vision of the circumstances of his death, such that he could write it down. Nothing is impossible if you have a magical being in your equation.
Yeah.
But I have a question to that. I mean, if you read the Bible, God talks sometimes directly in the book, okay, but mostly these are stories. I mean, it doesn't seem right to say it is also the word of God.
Well, same as the Quran, you know.
I don't see that. I personally don't see that. The Jews claim the same thing for the Torah.
The difference is the prevalence, because you hardly, well, the Orthodox Jews, they are at most 10% of the Jews in the world today, and even among the Orthodox Jews, you have people who are who don't consider it exactly that way. So, because Orthodox is just a question of how much you're willing to do, how many of the commandments you're willing to follow. It's not really much about your theological opinion.
But do you have any knowledge of how many Jews there actually are that follow all the rules for Sabbath? Because there's like tons of them.
0.
You have all these.
I really
hang on,
mean it,
you have
because
in the shops. You have all these things that
What about
automatically switch on
Halloween?
lights, automatically switch on the gas, and automatically do things like that, so that you do not have to go and apply any switch. You can buy these things.
Right, of course. But the reason why I say 0 is because what is fine according to one opinion is not fine according to a different opinion. So there is no way to please all. But actually, well, there are communities, and I've been in one of those that are pretty strict, and well, light switch, they have certain rules, what's allowed and what's not. Like time switches are fine because they are set up before the Shabbat, and they work on Shabbat according to a program that has been set up before, and that's totally fine. But there are much more discussion on that, and that's I would rather leave it internal to Judaism to discuss that than discuss it here.
The Judaism Messiah just comes if the Sabbath is holy from the whole community of the Jews. So until everybody obeys this law about not working on Sabbath, you will not see the Messiah. And we have the problem to define at first what is work at all. I mean, work for me is...
There is no problem of defining work, because...
there is problem. I just want to explain why. Because in my opinion, work is if you do it with your consciousness, meaning if you do something by thinking anything, meaning your brain makes a signal to move your eyes. That is half consciousness and half unconsciousness. So already there is work. So yeah.
I don't think that the term work is any problem for Judaism, because it's not actually about work. It's about the word that is actually used in the Hebrew Bible is melacha, which is which might be familiar to those who speak German from the word malocha. Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
So malocha is in German means like heavy labor, like really hard work. But in according to the Torah, that's a special type of work that was used to construct the, what do you call that, the moving temple, the tabernacle. So it's only those. There is a list of works that were done to erect this tabernacle, and only those who are akin to those works are considered actually work, melacha.
Yeah, but what is hard work? I mean, if somebody is really, really sick and he can't even lift a little finger, it's also hard work for him to do that.
It's not about your perspective of hard work or not. It's about a list of, I don't know, hitting, making the final hit or something like that, or what's there to carry something. There is, if you read the I think it's second book. There is a list of things that were done to erect the temple, and it's exactly those things and those who are akin that are prohibited. But then the question is, yeah, what is akin? What is like this? And it becomes a mess very soon. But what's important in the Jewish community is that there are some things that people agreed on, and that's switching on lights and carrying a key outside the house. That's considered work.
So just the same cherry picking as always in religion.
Of course. Well, what I wanted to just to say that saying that all the other religions don't consider their book as the word of God. That is certainly not true for Judaism, because
Interesting. I thought that it was just divinely inspired and not the literal word of God.
Yeah, I
So
also
that's
thought so.
interesting to hear that.
there are enough
If
people
we
who
take
consider
only the Torah and this is the word of God, so but the Old Testament concludes many other books, so all they're also considered as the word of God, or what?
not really, but they are more like inspired.
There you
So
have it.
you have the 5 books, but of course you also have other divine, well, holy scriptures, or I don't know, like a Hadith. They are not the divine word of God, but they're still considered as important for your divine health, for your whatever.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah, I agree with that, but as a book, as a whole compilation, as a whole canon, the Quran is considered as the whole word of God. That you can say from the whole Old Testament.
Well,
I
so
guess
exactly.
maybe there's not a perfect analog between the two. Different cultures will produce different kinds of documents. So maybe
Actually, it's very similar, because you can take
You know what I mean is
the Torah
oh
in the
yeah
strict sense,
yeah.
and then the Torah is the word of God, and then you have the words of the prophets, and then you have the Psalms and the writings of the kings, and they are already less holy, because this is what, like, the Old Testament in Hebrew, you say you use the word Tanakh. Tanakh is an acronym made from Torah, Nevi'im, just like Nabi, and Ketuvim, just like Kitab. So the Torah, the prophets, and the writings, and that's also the order of divinity. So the Torah can still be considered as the word of God. The prophets and the writings are already on much less value. Well, not much, but a little bit. And then you have the later rabbinical writings like the Mishnah and the Gemara and so on.
Yeah, it's just Islam is Judaism .2, yeah, something like that. I've also heard this many times, and when I started looking at the New Testament, I've automatically had to look at the Old Testament. I've always shied away from Judaism because it is so horribly complex, just as you've explained it, with all the 3 different books and blah blah. The 3 different areas, and each with several books. Well, except the Pentateuch, but all the other.
I think
it's horribly
it's just
complex.
as complex as Islam. I think Judaism is a great analog for Islam, because just like Islam, there's no central authority. You have schools and streams and movements that either mutually recognize each other or don't. You know, and it's decentralized. So it's you know, and there's consensus building in different sects and groups and things. You know what I mean? So it's and you've got this vast
without a sun, so yeah.
Orally transmitted literature that's supposed to go back generations and generations. You know,
Except
Judaism
for
has the same
Ezra. This God had a son, of course, yeah.
Well, according to Quranic polemic. But you know, so I think there's actually, and then you have an emphasis on the holy law, Sharia for the Muslims, the halakha in Judaism. There's even in the Haredim, I think the Haredim in particular. I only just learned about them recently. I was absolutely fascinated. Watched a whole bunch of docos on them, and they're really interesting. They, like the women, wear headscarves. You know, all the guys are supposed to go and learn religious knowledge. You know, to do your Torah studies or whatever, or the rabbinical studies. It's really interesting. So yeah, when you were mentioning that you were in an Orthodox community, did you mean Orthodox or ultra-Orthodox Jews?
Well, rather Orthodox, because I was born into a secular Jewish family. So you don't really make the step towards the ultra-Orthodox that easily. And also, it's hard to find them in the middle of Europe.
Although what's funny is that they preserve old European customs. Like the way that they dress is like they used to dress in the Ukraine and Poland 200 years ago. It's incredible. Like
Yes.
they retain,
And actually, they know
that
about it.
attire.
They know about
Hey?
it.
Oh
They-
yeah.
They refer to this dress code as the polished dress.
Yeah. Because what was it like? The reaction to the Haskalah or something? Reaction to the Enlightenment, and so in reaction to the changing to the what they saw as the corruption of Judaism by this European Enlightenment and this self-criticism and whatever, these compromise of what they saw as the true religion and the true law and whatever. They were like, we have to do the opposite and what, like crystallize, I guess, or conserve our way of life. And so this, you know, the Ukrainian and Polish dress becomes timeless attire.
Well,
Okay, I have one question on Islam. Are we done? Can we carry?
What was you going to say? You were going to say something else.
I'll leave it now.
No,
Okay.
was I wrong?
Sorry, I didn't mean to cancel this.
Judaism is like is a complete blind spot for me. So if I've made an error, you correct me.
Your question on Islam, please.
Okay, the question is, if there was one thing that would disprove Islam 100%, what would that be? What is disproving Islam? You can't prove Islam. You can't disprove Islam. Islam is an ideology. So I don't know. Does anybody else want to address this?
I think that what really would disprove any holy scripture is making it less vague. The moment that your scripture becomes as precise as like that you really can do something that compare it against reality without any interpretation, then your scripture becomes falsifiable, and then it's either correct or not.
Because I don't think that you can prove or disprove Islam as such. You can take the contents and then, as you said, then verify it or falsify it. But the entire Islam, you cannot. So if we're going to concentrate on what would disprove the claims that Muslims make, that is very easy. It's the Quran. You just need to read the Quran and it disproves any claims that Muslims have.
But I don't think that we are smart enough to find the thing that disprove everything in Islam or the Islam as a whole. Even the small things, you can't convince anybody really just by proving him the reality. They need to doubt by themselves, to read something or to take any action by themselves and see that reality is different from that word of the God.
Well, because the whole thing, I think, hinges around a God, all right? Otherwise, the whole thing wouldn't make sense. So the first thing that you need to do is first demonstrate that this God actually exists. And that's already the end, because you can't. So you cannot prove the existence of a God. That means you cannot prove the basis, the foundation of a religion, of Islam or Christianity or whatever. So it means you have to use this beautiful word we have, which is called faith. So faith is believing without evidence, and even though there is evidence to the contrary, you believe this anyway. So people need to go and say, okay, I believe that a God exists, and there you have Islam. As soon as you have that, it doesn't. You can't falsify it. So you can't disprove Islam. You can't disprove a God. You can't disprove anything. You can only prove that the claims made by Muslims are unwarranted and false.
Yeah, I think I would largely agree with that.
If you define Islam as you do as a socio-politic system with all kinds of items, then you can't really expect that there would be a single thing that would counter all of them. That's kind of homeopathy. Like you're looking for some magic to counter all diseases. That's I don't think that's in the realm of the possible.
Well, you just read the Quran and you're done. I mean,
there is, however, something that disproves quite a lot: the idea of creation. If you think about what in our mind creation is, that means that some entity produced something, and this something, the created thing, is complete. That means that's done. You never hear some craftsman saying, yeah, I've created half a table, or I've created something that is not done yet. And the fact that we live on a planet that is still in development, that we still have continents moving, new islands coming up, and that's the planet that we consider our world is not complete. It's not not in its final stage yet. That basically disproves, well, that disproves the usage of the term creation.
In the logical sense, I would agree with that, but as always, the believer, it's a test for life. If an earthquake happens, it's a test to live with that, to confront with the loss of people, of a beloved one, etc. So that's no proof for a believer still. I mean, we can talk all day long, but the believer believes.
Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly. I actually have presented this idea to some of the religious people, and they would have attacked the meaning of the word creation. That's just my subjective perception of, not perception, my personal interpretation of the word creation. That actually doesn't mean that. Well, but I decided to throw it out because for some people it is convincing and for others not. And if you're religious not for any logical arguments that have convinced you that you're just happy to be in this community. So I don't think anything that is coming from the way of logic is doing any is making any difference to the religious people.
I want to tell a little story I had this week. I wanted to order a little book, and I have here in my near town a little Islam shop, and I thought maybe they can order the book for me. So I came into contact with them, and they started to try dawah on me, and I just got annoyed. And then came up that even new scientists proved the existing of the reality of the Quran, blah blah blah. I just wanted to know one thing.
Oh, shit.
Just to know one thing that he mentions to me, and he said, well, a French scientist discovered fresh and salt water don't mix it, blah blah blah. I didn't go into the detail, and later he wanted to offer me a little book, free little book about scientists in general, and that today science proves the Quran, etc. And I already said that I have this book in my collection, and everything in there is just false. And then he said to me the magical, well, we don't believe in these things because it's scientific, because we believe because it's in the Quran. So there you have it.
The usual nonsense. It's unbelievable. Well, I saw this dawah stand last week when I was there for like over an hour. They also had this what was it? How Islam gives human rights to women, and how Islam proves the existence and the accuracy of science and all this. It's absolutely amazing how they can like really convince themselves that there is some truth in this. Okay. Okay, and now I'm so used to being given a hadith of the week that I actually, okay, but I found one. Does anybody know how Muhammad said you're not supposed to cry if somebody dies because actually it's a blessing and blah blah?
The sun eclipse.
Sorry?
It was about the moon or sun eclipses, no?
No, that's when he went into hiding. I mean, Muhammad was a coward according to the thing because he saw this as a sign from his God, so he went into hiding as soon as there was an eclipse or thunder or something like that. He was petrified apparently. Anyway, he said, do you intend to bring the devil into a house from which Allah has twice been driven out? Because somebody cried, and therefore he refrained from weeping, and I did not weep. And this is from Maududi 004, Hadith 2007. No, sorry, from Muslim, Book 4, Hadith 2007. And then we have the contrary in Bukhari, who says, we were in the funeral procession of one of the daughters of the Prophet, and he was sitting by the side of the grave, and I saw his eyes shedding tears. So it seems he couldn't make up his mind whether or not you're allowed to cry in Islam or not.
There you go.
That was my contribution for the Hadith of the week. Any closing thoughts by anybody?
Nope. Just, look forward to all of you converting to the way of the Exalted One.
Yeah, are you going to make this into a broadcast, a podcast? Are you going to make this
a short story?
Do you have a specific name for this religion, or is it just the way of the Exalted One?
Yeah, maybe something like that. The path, the exalted path, perhaps.
Theo, the Exalted One. All right, so no closing thoughts, no closing ideas. Anybody want to say anything? Otherwise, I'll take us offline. Just please stay with us because I want to discuss this podcast idea. All right? That's it.
Okay.
Cheers. Bye-bye. See you next week.
Bye at all.